You're watching The End Zone, sponsored by Lucky Star Casino.
Welcome to another edition of The End Zone along with TJ Eckert. I am Colby Daniels as we put a bow on the college football season. Congratulations to OSU on winning a national championship.
Yes, of course.
Maybe not the OSU we were talking about preseason that had a chance to win the Big 12, but TOSU, The Ohio State University, wrapped up the college football season on Monday night with their win over Notre Dame. So we're going to kind of go through this show and put a bit of a bow on the college football season. But before we do that, TJ, we finally had some media availability in Stillwater following pretty dramatic offseason.
Yeah, you mentioned it's so funny, just looking back in hindsight, that OSU was a pick to win the Big 12 and a pick to make the playoff, and they had one of the worst seasons that they've ever had. Yeah, I was thinking about that. We hadn't heard from Gundy since after Colorado, which means we didn't hear from him until, we missed out on like postseason recap, early signing day stuff, and then obviously the debacle that happened with his contract and the negotiations there. The
standoff, if you will, that took place at the KOKH Corral following the season. Let's start with hearing from Mike Gundy for a moment. He talked about just, I think, his energy and passion for still coaching football.
My energy level, my commitment to Oklahoma State football is stronger every year. I think at some point I always feel like I'll get to where I tire some and it kind of wears on me, but I've said this a number of times. I still wake up in the middle of the night and football is on my mind. Unfortunately, at my age, when I have to get up and go to the bathroom at the middle of the night, walking toward the bathroom and walking back from the bathroom, football is on my mind. I wish it wasn't, but it is. When I shower in the morning, football is on my mind.
There you go. Football is on his mind. Listen, when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I have that thought like, pretend you're still asleep and maybe you won't wake up and you'll be able to go right back to sleep. Yeah. Because if I fully wake up, I'm not going back to sleep. But good for him to really.
You're not thinking about football?
Have a few moments to, contemplate X's and O's.
That's good to hear that he's like all of us degenerates out there. That we're all thinking about football 24/7. His is a little different in that it's his job. Us, it's more like, what am I going to bet on? But his is a little different.
Well, we mentioned the standoff, and we had some availability with Chad Weiberg as well, and he was directly asked if they ever considered Mike Gundy, or if they ever considered firing Mike Gundy if he didn't do certain things. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. I'm not going to get into all of the specifics of the conversations. I think what everyone was focused on is how do we get this to where we need it to be. It is. Again, it goes back to the high stakes that are involved in this.
High stakes. It's $1 billion business, right? College football.
The answer, he said no, but then he kind of hesitated. So I don't know if he was about to say something that was incriminating towards what was actually going on in those meetings.
Right.
But I think they were closer than he let on.
I don't think he necessarily painted a picture that gave me 100% confidence in his answer. Yeah. But, the news reports were out there that at least there were discussions about maybe a plan B, a plan C, and maybe they never got close to firing Gundy, but maybe that was plan B or plan C or plan D or something down the line.
At least not for Weiberg or Schrum. It sounds like they were in full support of bringing him back, at least.
We also got to have our first introduction to the new coordinators, and we'll start with Doug Meacham, who's back at Oklahoma State, this time as the OC.
You're going to adapt first. Everybody has this set of plays they love. I have stuff I really like. But it depends on what you have. Can you do it or not? And then if you have to tweak it to make it fit, you have to do it as well. That's part of what we do is adjust, adapt, figure out a way what we're good at, what our personnel is, and then figure out from that what are good plays. It may be stuff that I haven't even had experience with, but it all depends on what we have, Like you got a pocket quarterback opposed to a runner. You got an athletic O-line opposed to a humongous O-line. If you don't have a quarterback, it's hard, It's hard. Coaching's maybe a little overrated, sometimes it's players, but you got to have a QB that can function. Whatever that is, if it's throwing, running, whatever, you got to have somebody that can pull the trigger.
Adaptability,
Good
right?
answer.
I mean, sometimes you have coaches that just say, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I think if you put somebody in a box, that's a recipe for failure, right? You have to have adaptability to not only what you might be seeing from the defense, but to what your personnel is and how that might change, not only from season to season, TJ,
Right.
but especially in this era with injuries and everything else. Game to game, week to week, you have to have adaptability.
It's not, the saying is, it's not X's and O's, it's Johnny's and Joe's, right? So we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves into one system, one scheme, because I may have a quarterback one year that is really mobile and really good on the run and outside the pocket, and then I may have a quarterback the next year who can't run out of sight, right? Like, why am I going to run that same offense year to year? So I think, to me, that's the answer that Cowboy fans would want to hear.
No doubt. And finally, we met defensive coordinator Todd Grantham.
If you go through the guys that I've had, you start with Frank Beamer. You know, Frank was a guy that always believed in during tough times, you right the ship and you stay the course. Then you go to Nick Saban, and with Nick, that was probably the hardest transition of anything, meaning when I went from Nick to the NFL ranks, that transition was much easier. Going with Coach Saban, you know, it's just his attention to detail. You want to have the ability to be multiple, meaning I'm 4 down or 3 down, but within that personnel, I don't got to sub. Because if I sub and they know, well, you're going to 3 down, well, they're going to have their 3 down plays. So offenses are going to have they're going to have their plays relative to, all right, this is 4 down, these are our top plays, this is 3 down. So I think your ability to stay within a system, and then from that go from 4 down to 3 down, allows you to make it a little bit harder for them to have a beat on what you're doing.
I absolutely geeked out on a lot of the X's and O's talk from both Meacham and Grantham this week and their availability. And that's just a taste. I mean, and look, I'll just say, I think both of them understand the evolving play that is taking place in college football. It's not, you're not seeing the game played the same way that it was 5 years ago. And I thought both of them gave answers to, you know, what we're seeing college football evolve into.
Feels like, by the way, really quick, it feels like Gundy's going to be much more hands-off than he has been. Like, I feel like in years past, especially with the staff that's been there for a long time, I feel like he was able to feel like he could be more hands-on. With this, they almost all brought in their own staff. So it's kind of like, you guys handle that, I'll be the head coach, we'll go from there.
All right, let's talk about the best of the college football season next here on the End Zone. All right, it's time for us to give away some end of the college football season awards. It is award season. I think a lot of the music industry, the movie industry, they're gearing up for all of their award shows. So why not give away some end of the season college football awards? And look, we have to start with the Media Availability Award, right? Who's the best with the media? This might actually be a Lifetime Achievement Award for this particular winner, because I don't think you can give it to anybody but Mike Gundy, who has been exceptional all season long. And really, as you'll see in the next clip, he added one yesterday with his zipper check comment in the middle of his press conference. But here are a few of the highlights from Mike Gundy this season.
So it's different for me on offense. I had to check my zipper real quick. You ever do that? I mean, make sure, you know what I'm saying? Well, it's just like, when you get older, you know, I just want to make sure. So with offense, it's different than defense. I can't, they won't let me hear it. If anybody's a good IT guy, we'll get the guy from Michigan down here and let him hook me up.
Such a good start.
Even though he didn't do it.
Look at his face.
What was that song? What was that song? You should know. Yeah, the song, it was kind of a partial rap in the shower. It caught me, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. What was it? Yeah. It wasn't me. That's right, it wasn't me. I know that was you. It wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Had some pressure on the quarterback. That needs a new compressor. I mean, is there a chance we can unplug it?
This is the press box refrigerator going out during a press conference.
Yeah. Compressor's going out.
I can.
He just.
I mean, y'all can't. There's no way y'all can hear very good.
It's not easy. It's like crowd noise
Yeah.
in the game.
There's got to be a.
Now he goes to fix it. He eventually unplugs it.
We got Robert.
Like an animal
Fully
zoo.
indoctrinated.
And a standing ovation.
Well, I had a little run-in with my cattle over the weekend, and I guess they've been watching us play, and got headbutted. So I've got a bad eye that I didn't think would be particularly enjoyable for people when they were looking at my pretty face in a live interview.
We never saw that, by the way.
We did not see it, but
So who knows?
yeah, who knows what it was like. But he got headbutted by one of his cattle. I mean, just one of the many great moments this season.
Really, really good. And like you said, lifetime achievement, because he really is the gift that keeps on giving.
He
It's
is.
every year.
He is.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the best player performance of this football season. I went R. Mason Thomas with what he did down the stretch against Tulane, TJ. He had 3 sacks. One of them was the strip fumble sack that ultimately sealed the game. He had a tip pass. He was a monster over the final 5 minutes that clinched this game.
And they needed him, right? I mean, there's pretty decent
Close
chance
game,
that
yeah.
Tulane was going to go down the field and score and maybe win that game. So, yeah, just for the moment, and then that kind of catapulted him, maybe not the team itself, but him into the rest of the season, because he had some really big moments in SEC play as well.
Yeah, he was a monster and just absolutely unblockable down the stretch. All right, best career achievement. And this had to go to Brennan Presley, right? I mean, he becomes Oklahoma State's all-time career reception leader. We've talked about it many times on the show. The list of great Cowboy receivers in recent years, and this guy sits at the top of the catches list.
And you mentioned the list of great receivers. We're talking about putting him on the Mount Rushmore. We've done that already. We did it with Brandon Whedon last week. Talking about putting him on the Mount Rushmore of top 4 wide receivers in OSU history. Like, to think about that is pretty wild, given his small stature and given the rest of the guys that have played at OSU at that position. Pretty impressive.
All right, next, I think he win.
Yeah, there was that one, and if the game ended differently, the strip sack and return by Billy Bowman in the Mizzou game, which gave them the lead in a game they had no business of winning, they ultimately lost. That would have been another candidate for
Absolutely.
me too. But that won them the game at Auburn.
Yeah,
so I
if
agree with
that
one.
Missouri game doesn't flip,
Yes.
then
Totally
you're probably
agree.
right.
Yeah.
All right, moment of the year.
Memory for the Sooners. Obviously, Texas games will play a part in that as well, but this was really good.
Yeah. And then finally, we got to go to the
They found a way to create some momentum in the second half. The defense made some plays. Arkansas gifted them some plays as well. But, OSU needed that in the worst way. I don't even remember. 3-9 we had talked about being really bad. When was the last time we went 2-10? Not good. So they needed that one. I'm glad they got it done.
Desperately needed that one, and that was a fun game.
Yeah.
All right, it is also a best of college football edition of Moving the Chains next here on the End Zone. All right, we are doing a best of college football edition of Moving the Chains. So we're going to throw out different questions about the college football season and. Look, we're judging each other, so we're probably going to get a first down.
Yep.
So we'll see at the end of this thing. But
Good job.
Let's start with this. Give me your top 3 Moving the Chains answers throughout the college football season.
Well, my favorite moment that we've had was flaming Matt Burton for his takes on Christmas music and Christmas lights. So, Matt, if you're watching, that was still a horrible answer. So I'll go with that one.
You made the highlight reel,
Yeah,
though.
but you did make the highlight. It's the best of, and he made it. So that's the one I'll give first. I'll know.
Okay. I'll go with Clint Shelf proclaiming that he wants candy corn is trash on his tombstone.
That was good. That was good. Jason White telling us that he would have gone to Miami in the transfer portal era if it existed back then. That was interesting just because we didn't have any idea what his answer would be, and he actually gave a pretty interesting one. So
that was a really fun one.
Yeah.
I will go with Gabe Eichard telling the story about putting the golden hat after the Red River rivalry on and it having shards inside and cutting his forehead.
Yeah, that was good. I'll steal the one with Clint Shelf too because that was pretty funny.
And finally, I'll go with Ryan Broyles throwing shade at Oklahoma State out of nowhere, right? OSU catching a stray from Ryan Broyles over whether or not they could win the Big 12 championship. All right, top 3 wow moments of the college football season.
Well, we just mentioned it in the previous segment. I think OU beating Alabama was a big wow because I'm not sure we expected it, and then the way they did it was impressive. So I'd say for me that was probably number 1, and it was local. So
Okay.
I'll go with that.
I'll go with the atmosphere in South Bend for the first ever home college football playoff game. I had goosebumps just watching the pregame and the lead up to the first kickoff.
How about Cam Scadaboo? I'm not sure if that's like a top 3 moment, but man, that dude took the country by storm. And the run he had, the run Arizona State had, was very unexpected this year. So shout out to him, and Coach Dillingham made a great season.
Especially what he did in that Texas game.
Exactly.
I will go with, it's kind of a combo, Jeremiah Smith's performance in the Rose Bowl and just the complete demolition of the #1 Oregon Ducks in the Rose Bowl by the eventual national champion Ohio State
That
Buckeyes.
was good. And then I'm going to throw a wow, and then they'll play in the next question to Northern Illinois going to South Bend and beating Notre Dame was a wow. And then again, they'll also play in the next one too.
Georgia coming back down by, 21 points to Alabama, and eventually taking the lead in the fourth quarter before the 17-year-old receiver catches the long touchdown pass, Ryan Williams, for Alabama to then pull off the win. So that was crazy. All right, top 3, what the bleep was that moments in college football?
Well, I just said it. So Notre Dame losing at home to Northern Illinois and then making the national championship.
I'll stick with Notre Dame attempting to kick a field goal in the fourth quarter of the national championship game down by 16 when they had gone for fourth downs twice on the opening drive.
Man, Notre Dame is kind of a hot and cold in this segment right now. OSU's entire season was a WTF for me.
That's totally
I don't know what they were. I don't know what that is. Just I don't get it. It was out of nowhere. Didn't expect it, so I'll go with that as well.
I will go with the semifinal matchup. Texas is driving to tie the game, and on 2nd and goal from the 2-yard line, Sark decides to call a pitch that results in like an 8-yard loss and sets them up for failure. What are you doing?
And then I'm going to go with the playoff structure is a big WTF because I like that. Just the seeding itself doesn't make any sense.
Love the playoff.
Yes,
yes.
Yes. Either add more teams or change the way you structure it.
Okay, and I will go with the whole Ohio State-Michigan flag plant, players getting maced situation.
Arresting people,
All right, finally, before we get out of here, has the Big Ten officially surpassed the SEC as the dominant conference in college football?
I would say not yet. But they are certainly closer than I think people would have expected you to say at the beginning of the season. The joke is that now that people can get paid, everybody in the North starts to win because that's where all the money is, right? So maybe that's true. I don't know, but I wouldn't say it's surpassed it quite yet.
There's more parity in college football than there's ever been, but we didn't decide that the ACC was the best when Florida State and Clemson won a couple of national championships about 10 years ago.
Right.
I don't think the Big Ten is the best. We can give Ohio State and Michigan credit for the teams they've produced the last 2 seasons, but until you regularly produce national champions for 2 decades from about, 5 or 6 different schools, I don't think the SEC has been taken off their throne as of yet. All right, we are wrapping up this edition of the End Zone on the other side with a look at the local guys participating in the Senior Bowl and our Super Bowl predictions. That's next. As we wrap up the show, we'll get to our Super Bowl predictions momentarily because, the conference championship games are this weekend.
That's right.
The college football season is over, but that doesn't mean that college football news is over. We have the Senior Bowl coming up next weekend, so all of next week, the practices are really the biggest part of that.
Right.
Ollie Gordon is one of the featured local players at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, good for him. I think if he has a nice week there against some good competition, it'll only help his draft stock.
He's a guy that saw his stock, I think, drop quite a bit this season. Colin Oliver, I think, is poised to have a big week rushing the passer off the edge.
Can't have enough of those in the NFL, so hopefully he's recovered from the injury and has a nice showing.
Trey Rucker, the safety from Oklahoma State, Nick Martin, who missed a lot of time this season, is on his way to Mobile. And, linebackers, I don't know how much in one-on-ones they really rise or fall in the Senior Bowl, but Nick Martin's a guy that I think we all feel like has a lot of skill. Trey Rucker, who I was about to mention a second ago, got a late invite this week, so he's headed to Mobile.
He had a great few games to start the season, made a name for himself. Curious to see what he looks like there in Mobile.
So 4 Oklahoma State representatives, Billy Bowman, the solo Sooner, headed to Alabama for the Senior Bowl, and a guy that I think has a big future in the NFL.
Hard to teach ball skills and ball hawking, and he's got that, so that's good.
All right, let's predict the Super Bowl. TJ, what do you got?
So my wife's family is all Chiefs fans. I can't not pick the Chiefs. I wouldn't be allowed back at the house. And then the Philly game's tough. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I actually think Washington has a really good chance to win it, but I'll go Chiefs and Eagles.
All right, fair enough. I'm going to go Washington versus Kansas City. I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes, and while I'm a Cowboy fan, both of these teams are division rivals. I will never pick the Eagles ever, and I do like watching Jaden Daniels play, so maybe this is more wishful thinking. But we'll talk about it all next week as we get closer to the Super Bowl. That's TJ Eckert. I'm Colby Daniels. Everybody have a great weekend.